Hello and welcome to episode 115 of the Boot Nerds podcast. JayMike, hello again. I feel like we're repeating this episode.
Yeah, we've tried to make this before, but the thing is that I'm recording the audio on my laptop, and my laptop died, or the hard drive died, which is weird. I've never tried that before with a MacBook, but anyways, it died. Got a new hard drive. We're back in the game, and new boots have dropped, so we're just going to add to all the stuff we talked about last week, and it's going to be really awesome. We're going to talk about the Tiempo Legend 9, we're going to talk about the Adidas X Speedflow, and we're going to talk about the brand new PUMA Ultra 1.3. So there's going to be probably the most loaded Boot Nerds podcast episode we have ever had, I think. It's going to be a lot of fun. But first things first, how are you, my friend?
No complaints from my end. I'm excited to be a boot nerd right now. I think we've waited a very long time for some new and exciting stuff. I think that while there have been some great boots already in 2021, and some of them have been disappointed, I was a little bit let down by Copa Sense. I just was hoping for more from that. But I think that this new rollout from Nike, Adidas, and Puma is extremely exciting. And I can't wait to try it all out.
I would agree. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be excited by the new direction for the Tiempo, and I understand and I agree. We're going to talk about the good and the bad things, because there are both good and bad, and some question marks for me at least. X Speedflow, I think if you followed us on our regular channels, Unisport and SR4U, or our Instagrams, you will probably know by now that we are very excited, for good reason, I would say. So very excited to talk about that. And then the Ultra is a bit of a new direction for that speed boot, but probably also the best speed boot Puma has made in a long time. So yeah, that's a bit of a statement as well. Where do you want to start, Josh? Would you start from the beginning?
Yeah, let's talk Tiempo, because it's been out the longest. Even though at the time of recording this podcast, I still don't have a pair, but I'm hoping to have a pair as soon as today, right after we're done recording this. So I'm hoping to have a firsthand experience right away. But I'm just really excited about the direction that Nike has gone in. This is, it's not everything that I think I was hoping for from a Tiempo, but I think it's a lot of the criticism I had of the Legend 8. I feel like they've gone in that direction of simplifying things, making the leather the star of the show, and then still having some kind of a technical aspect to the boot, which is kind of what the Tiempo line has been all about from the beginning, right? It's a classic option with the leather, but there's still some kind of added element to it, which they've done with the memory foam and the texturing, which I don't know, the way that it's been implemented and Nike's history in implementing memory foam in the past makes me optimistic for how this boot is going to feel.
And I understand that. And I'm going to put it out there right now that I think this is a better boot than the Tiempo Legend 8. It's a different boot, sure, but it definitely also appeals more to me. If you've been watching the Boot Nerds podcast, or again, watching our content in general, you will know that Josh and I, we were a little, should we say, skeptical? We were maybe also a little harsh on the Tiempo Legend 8 because it was a nice boot. It was pretty comfortable, but we just, at least personally, tell me if you disagree, but I was a little bit disappointed with how it felt as a Legend. It didn't really feel connected to the whole Tiempo DNA as I imagined or envisioned it. And it feels like going back to having the leather as the star of the show and none of that quad fit nonsense. And, this feels more like a Tiempo should to me. So they've done a lot of things. They've made it lighter, significantly lighter than the Legend 8. There's more leather. Well, I don't know if there's more leather actually, but it feels more like leather because the quad fit is gone. That means that you don't have that just loose layer that's not really connected to anything, that just floats around on the inside, creating that slightly disconnected feel between your foot and the outside of the boot and thus the ball. This is more like traditional, and it's very good. Then you say the foam pods, and like I say in my review, I don't know if you've seen it, but the first thing I thought about was, okay, a lot of people are gonna say that is a CTR 360 Maestri in leather. And did you also think that?
It didn't like, I recognize that it's an element that we've seen from Nike before, but I didn't really think to myself, wow, this looks a lot like a CTR 360. Like, that's what I'm expecting them to feel like. Just simply based on the fact that it is a kangaroo leather upper. And I know CTR had Kanga Light, which a lot of people still don't understand was a synthetic material. But as good as Kanga Light was, although I don't think if you went back and wore it now, you'd be as impressed with how it feels by today's standards. But it's hard to beat leather. Like, Kanga Light was ultimately a material that was set out to copy leather while maintaining some of the benefits of a synthetic. But when it comes to just pure feel, you can't really beat the real thing.
No, and it's a long time ago, especially with the first generation of Kanga Light up. I mean, what we saw on the 3 was pretty good, but I still think Hybrid Touch did a better job, but that's a whole other discussion. But So I think with the new Legend here, it's definitely a step in the right direction, and it's a Legend, one of the Legends I've probably enjoyed the most since the 5s or the 6s, which are really good. It kind of feels like a slimmed down, materialized version of the Tiempo Legend 7 that also had those foam elements in them, so a little bit of dampening, but this is a much sleeker package that feels somewhat like what you would get in the 5. Do you remember the touch in those? Like pretty close to the foot, very sharp. I like this in the Legend 9. I do, however, also think that, and this is where I'm really curious to hear your opinion, that it has been like materialized. It has been trimmed down, and the tooling is thinner, it's lighter, it's more responsive, and you get generally the feeling that this is a more minimalistic version of the Legend. And maybe that's where Nike wanted to go when they introduced it back in 1994, right? A really simplified, minimalistic leather boot with a lot of comfort in it. And then they threw some modern elements at it later. I'm just, this is a super easy boot to wear and super easy boot to love. But my question is just going to be whether it's special enough to really make a name for itself and establish itself, find its foothold, because it does share some of the similar traits with the Mercurial and, to some extent, with the Phantom GT. What are your thoughts on this?
I think Nike set out to kill two birds with one stone here, because I think what they had with the Legend 8 was a football boot that was objectively great, but subjectively maybe a little bit lacking in terms of feel. And I think what people would want from a leather boot, yeah?
And it wasn't sexy.
No,
it wasn't sexy. Let's be honest.
It was Nike saying, okay, here are 10 technologies that we have within the brand. We're going to put them all in one boot, add some leather on it, and call it the latest Tiempo. And look, it was a well thought out product. It felt good in general. It certainly performed the part, but it didn't. I don't think it stacked up well from the intangible element that is feel when you compared it to a lot of the other alternatives out there from other brands, including Nike's own Premier model. I think if you just wanted a pure leather touch, the Premier feels better than the Legend 8.
But it's just so flimsy.
Which I know, but if you're just talking about the upper, the pure leather just ends up offering a nicer feel, in my opinion. With the Legend 9, I think they had the group of Tiempo fans that wanted something more simplified, and I feel like they've given us that. And then you also have the issue of, is the Nike Tiempo even a viable line for Nike to offer anymore in terms of its mass appeal? Because leather boots, let's face it, have kind of fallen out of favor, certainly in the last 10 years. And I don't think a lot of the younger generation, not everyone, but the majority of the younger generation is going to be more inclined to buy something like a Mercurial or a Phantom GT for various reasons, but I think largely due to the fact that leather is perceived as this old school thing. And I think slimming the boot down, they've touted this as being the lightest Tiempos they've ever made, kind of not making it a true speed boot, but pushing it in that direction a little bit. I think that widens the appeal and maybe convinces new people to try out a Tiempo model that otherwise would not have if they continued kind of in the same direction as the Legend 8. So from that perspective, I think they did the right thing. It's just, I guess, going to be a matter of how many people like it enough to buy them. especially given how many new boots have come out right on top of the Legend 9.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? And of course, the two other boots we're going to talk about today are wildly different models. They're both speed boots, right? But this taps into or dips its toes into speed boot territory because it wants to be so light. It's so sleek, it's so streamlined, and you know, that's where I am curious to see where it ends for Nike, because can they get the stars that they want into the boot? You know, it's made for strikers, or striker oriented, and I understand why. I mean, this is a sexy looking boot, and it also feels that way when you're wearing it. Again, super easy to wear, super easy to love. There's nothing there, but I'm just, you know, what does it want to be, this Legend?
Yeah,
it's one of those boots that you can really just fall back to, and I think every player in every position would really enjoy it. But you can say the same thing about the Mizuno replica cups, which might be more expensive, yeah, but the leather is better. They also have foam pods, and they're lighter than the Legends. Sure, you know, the made in Japan's really expensive, but that's also like the Rolls Royce of football boots. But you can also go for the Elites, which are also really good. Sure, there's more leather on the Legend, but the Regular has nicer leather. So, you know, there will be more mass appeal because it's a Nike Tiempo Legend and more people know about it. I'm just, you know, I'm a little bit curious to see where it lands and which players will adopt it and how many, what the mass appeal will be. Because it's a good product, but is it a little bit of a confused product? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think the Rebula Cup is a pretty good shout in terms of pretty well the same concept, but obviously at a higher price point, but with what I would definitely argue is higher quality materials. Again, I haven't tried the Legend 9 yet. I haven't held them in my hands. I don't want to say that the quality is inferior to made in Japan Mizuno, but
it is.
I just feel like there's a high probability of that being the case.
I'll put it out there. It is. With that said, I think you're going to love these. I think you're absolutely going to love these. And that's also what I said. I think everyone putting on the boot will love them, but will they love them enough to go out of their materials or out of their Phantom GTs or out of their Rebula Cups? I mean, that's the key point here. If they can attract those players back into the Tiempo. And if they do, especially those players from the Phantoms, then they have a problem with the Phantoms.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. It's this interesting battle that the brands have to fight, especially when it comes to having multiple lines. And Nike's obviously gone from 4 to 3 lines not that long ago, so I think that helps their cause a little bit. And I still think there's enough that's different about the Tiempo compared to the Mercurial and the Phantom GT, where I don't think they're going to pull a significant amount of numbers out of one of their lines and into another, which I don't know that that's necessarily a good or a bad thing for the brand. What I think ultimately every brand is trying to do when they release something new is pull consumers away from a competing brand, right? And I think they have that potential to do it with this new Tiempo going in this kind of speed boot direction. And I really like the design. I think it's a very cool looking boot in the couple colors that we have so far. And look, I think there's a little bit for everybody in terms of what they've made available at launch, which is a good thing. I'm hoping for something, and just to make another Mizuno comparison, I was a big fan of the Supersonic Wave back when those were a thing. And that was another boot, kangaroo leather upper, memory foam inserts, and kind of a lighter, not necessarily speed boot-esque, but a very modern interpretation of a sole plate and stud pattern, which I feel like is what they've done here. So that's what I'm hoping this is going to feel like. And I think you're right in saying that it's going to be one of those football boots that's hard to dislike. You're going to put them on your feet. They're probably going to feel good. Leather is pretty... It's just hard to beat when it comes to fit and comfort. So it's just, for me, like you said, a matter of whether or not there is enough there to draw enough people to it to continue the popularity of the Tiempo line. And you also mentioned the start of the Tiempo Legend. And I think it's kind of interesting to point out how the standard has changed in terms of what consumers are looking for. Because the original Tiempo Legend was this, it came out at a time when most boots were leather, and there was a lot of old school stuff out there. And this was Nike's attempt at like, hey, let's give people this classic football boot feel, but then let's innovate with this kind of silver carbon weave sole plate and kind of some interesting modern things that you weren't really seeing on other football boots at the time. And over the years, I think the standard for Nike from a tech perspective has gone so high where with the Legend 8, I think they finally hit that wall where it's like, okay, this is too much for what this boot is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now they've simplified it, which I think is what a lot of longtime Tiempo fans have wanted. But now you run the risk of, is it going to be interesting long term?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I agree what you're saying. It's a super sexy boot. I love the focus back here. You know, maybe I'm a little bit too old for all the reflective jazz. But the fact that they have this shiny texture, which is basically patterns from previous Legends. So we have the diamonds from the Legend 8. We have the 6. I think there are the lines from the 5 right here as well. Some of the foam from the 7 on the side. Some stitch pattern from the 3 and the 2 as well, actually. Now that I'm looking at it. You know, so lots of little nods back in time, which is nice. I mean, you gotta look closely to spot it, but hey, it's cool. Yeah, I think if you go out there, you buy it, you're gonna like it. Is it enough to you know? Let's see.
Let's find out. Next,
I'm gonna put it on record right here, Josh. I think this will be one of your favorite Tiempos ever.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna be up there with the 5s.
Yeah, and on paper, it seems like something that I'm really going to like. So I am very excited to give those a try.
Yeah. Then, the other day, Adidas released the Speedflow Plus and the Speedflow.1. Don't think too hard about the outsole. It's the AG tooling because that's all we have. But it also, of course, comes with the Carbitex tooling for FG boots. Speedflow Plus. If you have seen my review, Josh's review, or our Instagram posts, you will know that we are very excited and that these have more or less converted the biggest laceless hater in the universe to being a laceless lover. What on earth is up with that?
Look, I am
Josh, by the way.
just as surprised as you are. Because I don't know, I looked at this boot and I thought, wow, they brought back Prime Knit. It's the actual laceless system is really nothing that we haven't seen before from the Adidas brand. It just carryover tooling, which granted the speed frame is one of the best sole plate stud pattern combos I think we've ever seen on a pair of football boots.
I agree.
But my God, this boot just has like, we talk about objective and subjective elements when it comes to a football boot. And objectively, a laceless speed boot, I don't think makes any sense. And that's been my argument with the whole laceless thing from the get-go. It's like, yes, you can do it, but is it the best way to make something that performs to the highest level? No. And I know there's people that are going to disagree with me, but I feel like I've been right in saying that. And even with this new Speedflow Plus, I still think you give up some lockdown and some responsiveness because you don't have a fastening system. There's still nothing that truly locks your foot in place. Yeah. But the specialness, the uniqueness of the feel it's to that level that very few boots are able to achieve. It's good. It's just good. It makes me understand why they've been pushing the laceless concept. It makes sense. And I'll say it right now. I still think it's the only laceless boot that you probably should consider if you're into the laceless thing. But man, it's just impressive.
Yeah. Look, the first feeling I got when I put this on was it was one of those, it was almost like an epiphany. And it sounds ridiculous because I've worn a lot of boots that I've really liked, but the fit is so unique that you have to try it yourself to understand it. It still has that vacuum sound when you put it on, but compared to the Ghosted, this actually, instantly takes to the shape of your foot. It's not like your foot is coming down into this predetermined shell in terms of the shape. You really feel how the texture, the textile wraps around the foot. So for me, was the perfect fit. It sounds like for you have a significantly different foot shape to me. It sounds like it was a perfect fit from the get-go. The low volume in the toe box, the way it fully just hugs your foot all the way around. It's super cliche to say, but it is truly a one-to-one like fit. And we've talked about sock-like fits for ages, but this is like the very essence of a sock-like fit. And sure, look, I saw a comment on your Instagram post that said that Jay was said that there were problems with the lockdown. Just to clarify, I don't think that there are problems with the lockdown. There are, as you say, it won't be perfect because it is a laceless boot, and you know, in my experience, when you put the foot down and you make these like very, very aggressive, sharp changes of direction, there will be, you know, your foot will slide, studs and the boot, they stay in the ground, and the foot will slide a little bit inside because there is, as you say, no fastening system. That is just the way it works. But the upper is so tight to the foot that it's a minor thing that I still think I would experience a little bit of movement inside the boot in these, even with a pair of grip socks and with laces. So just a little bit more in the laceless version. With that said, the uniqueness of this feel is something that is probably one of those boots that it's given me the biggest mental edge that I think I'm close to have ever experienced. It's that unique and it's that good. And it really gives you that ballet-like sensation that I can't find in any other boot at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it special, right? So it's super sharp, like razor sharp on the ball. The lockdown, I would say, is good enough even for the lockdown police, the two of us, to be happy about it. Or at least to not hate our lives while we play matches. And then it has that fantastic tooling. So for me, I mean, I said in my review as well, this is the best laceless boot adidas have ever made, like by a significant margin. And this might be, in terms of like performance, one of the best speed boots I think I have ever tried, because it just does it all. Now, I also want to say something, and I'll stop talking in a second, but performance-wise, purely performance-wise, I'm going to go for the 0.1s because they have the laces and I truly enjoy them. But if I'm just playing, I'm going to go for the pluses because they have a full prime knit upper. The fit is just that bit more unique, and it just does, it gives that extra layer on top of being a fantastic speed boot that just works. Do you know where I'm going?
100%. And I think, look, the 0.1 is objectively the better football boot. I don't think that's very surprising to anybody. And if you really want just peak performance, peak responsiveness, peak lockdown, like that's the one to have. What I think is cool about the plus is I think with this upper, they struck the perfect balance of pliability, structure, and then on top of that, the shape, that they just nailed it. And it's one of those football boots, and I say this, I think, multiple times in my review, is it has the ability to disappear on your feet. And that's what I think is cool about it. And the reason why it disappears on your feet, and the reason why this makes me say, okay, laceless boots can make sense, is the feel would not be possible if the boot had laces. So true. So similar to kind of what we talked about with the Copa 19 Plus when that came out and we were so impressed with it, which I think this is a significantly better football boot overall than the Copa 19 Plus. Absolutely. That boot offered a feel that wouldn't otherwise be possible if it had laces. And just the fact that they were able to achieve the performance levels that they have with the laceless upper as thin as this one is, I think is so impressive. I compared the upper to the Vaporposit synthetic that was found on the current Mercurials, and I think it feels even better than that, which is a crazy thing to say because I feel like Nike has really dominated synthetics for a long time. And also, I'm kind of dreading making comparison videos with the X Ghosted Plus that it replaces and I feel like we've fallen victim to this quite a few times over the years because we've reviewed so many football boots. Sometimes reviews do not age well because as good as the X Ghosted Plus is, and as good as I thought it was when it first came out, with this boot, it's such a gigantic step up that it makes me look back at the X Ghosted Plus and say, you know what? I don't want to wear those at all. Like I just wouldn't want to wear them.
No. Now, you're absolutely right. They don't age well, and it's like, Yeah, I think we can also go back to, what was back in 2010 and say, okay, we liked them back then with what we knew. But if I had known that this was coming out back then or known that it was so good, I don't think I would have liked the Ghosted as much because I knew what, that there was another level. So I think you're absolutely right. And just thinking about it, one of the key things behind this is the shape. So the last that they've made, this super, super tight, very anatomical fit that I don't know how they've done it. I don't know how the hell they've done it.
You know what's even crazier? What's crazy about that is putting on the X Ghosted Plus was, I would say, one of the worst experiences of any football boot. It wasn't
very nice, no.
Very hard to put on, and they made that top part very short. They've extended it on this new model, and given how perfect it wraps your foot, they're remarkably easy to put on and take off for laceless boots.
So easy to put on, yeah.
Which really concerned me the first time that I slid them on. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a sloppy nightmare when it comes to actually playing in them, but it's not. It pisses me off because I think what I really focus on in all of my reviews is trying to understand what's happening and why something is good or bad. And if I'm going to criticize something, I like to be able to explain why I think it's not good. And with this boot, like, I look at the construction of the upper, and yeah, it's very technical. It's impressive how they did things, but like, just from looking at it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a disaster. There's going to be no lockdown. There's going to be a ton of rollover in the upper. It's just not going to feel good. But then when you actually play in them, somehow it works. I don't get it.
No, it's surprisingly good. It's,
it shaves almost 20 grams off of the already lightweight X Ghosted Plus. I don't understand. I don't get it.
Nah. And even that's one thing I also want to mention, the heel. So the heel was all right in the Ghost. It was slightly better in the 0.1s. But this heel is much better. It was a little too stiff for my taste in the Ghosted Pluses. But this is just like this is flexible. You still get those foam parts hugging your heel, which is good. Approve. But all the stiffness and the lack of motion with the heel or adjustment around your heel, that's gone. Now, thoroughly impressed with these. And with some of the, I'm not going to say too much, but yeah, I really like them.
It feels like the future of football boots. Like if you could paint a pair of boots on your feet, that's kind of what I can compare this to. Like they did a good job. But again, I think the asterisk needs to be there. It's a laceless football boot, and your specific foot shape will depend a lot on the experience that you're going to have.
But it fits you really well, and it fits me really well.
Yes.
Like so there's a pretty big margin for error there. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are going to have a great experience, but there are going to be people that pick them up based on a recommendation and be like, oh my gosh, this doesn't fit well. It doesn't feel right. And look, that's what the 0.1 is for.
Well, and the upper is not as nice. The shape is not as unique, and it doesn't say when you stick your foot in to the same extent. I don't remember if it even does, but that's besides the point because it is soft. It is super sharp on the ball, and it gives me everything that I want. I say in my review, it kind of gives me those Superfly 4 feelings where it's like it's so soft around your foot, super pliable, really takes to the shape of your foot like a sock, but with a tighter, better locked in fit. And I think that's what you get right here. But Josh, let me put you on the spot for a second. Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
I'm glad I get to do it now. You've also worn the boots. So you have to go out and you have to play an important match. You have these in your hand, and you also have the Mercs in your other hand. You can only wear one pair of boots. What do you choose, Pluses or Mercs?
I'm picking the Speedflows. Not even just based on feel, based on comfort. I was so impressed with how comfortable this boot is straight out of the box. I can compare it to, we talked about this recently on the podcast, but the first time I wore the Morelia Neo 2 Beta, like it's one of those boots I just slid on my feet. I'm like, wow, these feel right. And that's the vibe I got with this boot. And look, I think the Mercurials are great. And if you're a fan of the Mercurial feel, this doesn't have it. It's not a mercurial. It doesn't feel the same at all.
No.
But it's natural. Man, it feels right.
I agree with you. I actually agree with you. And, I have been accused of being, a mercurial fanboy many times during my football nerd career, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
And look, I love the mercurials. And, Vapor 14s, even if every other football boot in the world was discontinued tomorrow, I would be happy to just have those and continue to play with. They're great football boots, right? But the reason I say that these are better is because of that mental edge. It's because of the different feel that you say they disappear without disappearing. They're still there, but they just they push so many right buttons. I'm very, very impressed. And even with these, I mean, Vapor 11s, these, I mean, I wouldn't care. They're that good.
Yeah,
so impressed.
They nailed Speedflow is quite an achievement, and X Ghosted was already quite an achievement. So the fact that they've raised the bar that much is nuts. Also, just because I don't want to praise Adidas entirely. There is some negativity,
of course,
to be found here.
Of course.
I don't know about Europe. Yeah, that's
super annoying.
That's really strange to me how they did that. Although, you know what? Somebody pointed out that it looks like the little flap on the Vapor 3, and now I really kind of like it.
Yeah, but I agree. But if they'd done something to it, written something X or so whatever, cool, I get it. But it definitely doesn't look on purpose, and it
is a strange little thing for them to. I don't know. I don't know how they fix it either. Maybe you put a split in the middle, but then maybe that just looks weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you can fix it anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Europe, but in the US, they have changed the pricing on 0.1. So it has actually seen a price increase from $225 to $250. So similar, they did the same thing with the Predator Freak 0.1. They raised it $25. Is that like ridiculously expensive now? No, it's just on par with the Vapor 14. So that's, I think, what Adidas is trying to do there. Although, on a more positive note, the AG models, and again, I'm not sure about Europe, but I can for sure talk confidently about the US. The AG models are $25 less expensive than the FG counterparts because they don't have the Carbitex insert, which I know a lot of people would want that, but the fact that they're charging you less for an AG stud pattern, and $25 is significant. We're not used to seeing this. Normally, brands would charge you a premium for AG, let alone give you a break. I think that's kind of nice to see.
Well, if you're in Europe, you're in luck. At least if you buy from your favorite neighborhood boot pusher, Unisportstore.com, because we are selling them for the sum of 220 euros.
Yeah, so they didn't go up in Europe. That's weird.
They didn't go up in Europe. Yeah.
Very strange. But anyways.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, but there are also others. Obviously, you still have an upper that crumbles despite it being so soft. Does it matter? No, but it's still like, it could be a little tighter to the foot, but that will happen inevitably with a synthetic upper that has a silicone coating. That's the way it works. Of course, protection is like, don't expect any. But you know that. And then there was, what was it that annoyed me?
You mentioned in your review the upper kind of pulling away a little bit as your foot bends, but that's going to happen in almost any synthetic boot. But yeah, that's
the crumbling thing. So if I bend my foot and it creates this like slight crease, it was really, really annoying with the Ghosted because it was a stiffer, more rigid upper and very synthetic-y, very plasticky. This is definitely less, but I still had it and I looked at it and thought, could they have optimized a little bit more? But maybe it's because I have such a low volume foot that it doesn't fill out the boot entirely. So maybe it's just me.
Yeah, and I think I was watching your review as well, and the first thing I noticed is you have a very high arch, and you can see
so high,
compared to when it's on my foot, how much higher that comes up in the middle, which is inevitably going to, so you're inevitably going to have a little bit of extra volume kind of across the top of your toes just to have that, because it's, unless the boots are custom made for your foot, you're never going to have that perfectly sculpted line across the top.
Someone should do that. Someone should make those. Adi, I'm looking at you. Or Mizuno, I'm looking at you especially. Because,
So,
anyways, Josh, we also have recently seen the launch of this.
Oh, there is one more. Just
okay. Well,
by the way, Nike launched a Phantom GT2.
Oh yeah,
and nobody cares. Okay, Puma Ultra. Here we go.
Well, we can talk about it, but yeah, nobody cares. It's the Phantom 1.
Even Nike doesn't seem to care.
They don't seem to care. It's the Phantom 1, different texture, new tap on the heel. External doesn't do anything, and this like embossed goes down.
Yeah.
There's like these two embossed, debossed, whatever things, pressured things on the front, and they don't do anything. It's just it's the same boot.
Yeah.
For good and bad. Anyway, so
Puma
released in other news, an Ultra 1.3, which is much more exciting to talk about because this is an entirely new direction for the Ultra. It has the same tooling, which means that it's still an Ultra as we know it. And that's good because it's hella light and hella responsive. Boom. Everything that was good and everything that could have been better with the original tooling is still here. But in general terms, I really like it. So the upper's new. Instead of this more like woven Grandad-like slipper Matrix Evo upper we got that was super, super soft, had that foam on the inside. This is still made with Matrix Evo, so you still get those carbon yarns making up like this grid-like pattern. It might be a little bit different. Wow, English. It might be a little bit difficult to see on camera, but it's imagine the Vaporposit upper. Kind of like this, we have that grid. Then you have on the inside, you have what they call a speed cage. So basically a little TPU cutout cage to give you some sort of shape and stability. You have the Matrix Evo grid on top of that. And then you have a layer of silicone with this slightly like matte finish, slightly sticky. You can hear that they call the Grip Control Pro. So, to some extent, they keep the same element names from the previous two Ultras, but it's a significantly different boot, especially because of the shape. So this is not as wide or has as much volume as the previous two boots, which is fantastic news for me because it feels closer and more streamlined to my foot. But if you are, say, PWG or Josh, it will be tighter. But they have also somehow nailed for me, the fit so it works well with my foot, and Philip tried it and said it was, a little bit pushing his foot, but definitely still wearable. Let me know your thoughts before I dive into why I loved them when I saw them, wore them, and thought, and then I'm back on these are actually flipping fantastic train.
I think that the shape modification looks good. I'm very curious to see how they're going to fit because even for me, I felt like there was too much width through the forefoot and toe box area and certainly too much volume pretty much throughout the entire, like from the lacing system forward, there was just too much volume in the Ultra, I think for the vast majority amount of people. Luckily, the lacing system accounted for that extra volume from a lockdown perspective. Second thing I immediately noticed as probably a really good move for Puma is the way the lacing system works now. Getting away from those little fiber lace loops and going to a double lace hole. I think there's a lot of people that were just afraid of that with the first Ultra. And I'm very curious to try this upper because to me, it's a lot of that tech that we've seen over the last several years in some of the SL boots that they've been producing. But then the combination of that with their Matrix Evo tech is something that I'd be very curious to try out. And not having tried the boots yet, it really does look like Puma's interpretation of the Prime Knit upper that we have on the Speedflow Plus. So I'm curious to try it out. And given, I think, how good Puma has done lately with their synthetic materials, I have very high hopes for this.
I would actually say that I've just thought about this now, that this sits somewhere in between the Vaporposit upper and the Prime Knit upper on the Speedflow. So very interesting. It is a little bit like you can tell that it is a synthetic, slightly plasticky upper, more so than what we got on the 1.1 and 1.2s with that set. And that was my like thing when I got into them. I was like, is this going to be too synthetic-y? But then I started playing with them, and it took me 2-3 minutes to go away from that idea of the upper being too plasticky to just simply enjoying myself, because this is a thin upper. It is a very, very thin upper. Completely new experience. Think the Ultra SL remats, but with just slightly thicker material, you know, where it's thicker, but to the point where it's thin or thick enough. Do you get what I'm saying? Like it's very thin, but not annoying like the remats boots were.
Yeah, I think what you're pointing out and what's taken me a long time to understand is when you have a boot like those SL models that Puma has done in the past, it's so thin and so lacking in structure that it feels like you're not wearing shoes. It's like kicking a ball barefoot, where I'm anticipating this having that little bit of hardness actually goes a long way in terms of protecting your foot against the ball. Yes. And I don't know why. It seems so insignificant, but it's very noticeable.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and we're talking maybe about, you know, not even a millimeter here, but it's so thin. And the difference compared to the Evo Speed SL is, I don't think you can really measure it just by looking at it, but there is just a little bit more material in there. There's a bit more boot in there, and you feel that. And sure, you need to be okay with feeling a lot of the ball, because you're gonna. I mean, it is very, very close to this barefoot-like sensation you're looking for, but without all the drawbacks of playing with bare feet. Lockdown is good, like you would expect. The Matrix Evo does its job. This softens up well when you start playing. That's kind of what made me realize how awesome it is. And it is surprisingly comfortable once you just break them in. It takes those 5-10 minutes, upper softens up, and they're lovely. You know, the tongue, perfect, heel, very good. No nonsense right there. And the only thing you got to get used to, for me at least, is the texture on the ball, because these are, it's not a sticky as in like a glossy stick, if you know what I mean, but it has this matte stick to the ball. So it gets better when the ball is wet, but if it's not, I actually tripped on the ball when it was dry. Yeah, because it had so much grip to it. So very nice. And for me, they're still 200 euros, Josh. Can you believe it? 200 euros. And I mean, it's 20 euros less than these. But I mean, compared to the Vapors, it's 50 euros less.
Yeah.
They're lighter. I don't know how light they are, but they shaved off some grams. This is my boot. It weighs under 150 grams.
So it'll still be just like the original Ultra. It'll still be the lightest speed boot you can buy. Yeah.
It's the thinnest. It might not be the most aggressive, but it's you know, it follows the leader, I would say. Probably third place compared to the Speedflow and the Vapor, but those are like next level. This is very, very good, and I would say good enough. So if you're looking for that cheeky alternative to the Mercs or the Speedflow, I mean, would I hate my life if I got these instead of the Mercs? No, I would definitely not. I would definitely not, and I think they've done something right here. It's less appealing to the masses because, yes, it is it's a bit more narrow, and it is less just like super duper max wildly comfortable. I think is it fair to call the Ultra 1.1 and 1.2s the most comfortable boots on the market?
Certainly the most comfortable boots in that lightweight category.
Yeah, but I mean, what's more comfortable? Like a softness, pleasant kind of, I'm sitting on the couch kind of way.
Okay, non-leather, in terms of a non-leather boot, yes, sure, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Okay, we talk about the Mizunos, the ultralights, all that jazz. Okay, fair enough. But you know what I mean, right? This is still very comfortable, but it's more speedy. It's thinner, so if you just want the thinnest and the lightest and the most raw on the ball, I mean, you want to pay less money. It's hard for me to recommend something else than the Speedflow because this is, in my opinion, the best. But you just gotta respect what Puma have done. And at any other point in the last 2 years, this would have been a very, very big threat to what Adi and Nike are doing. And I reckon because of the quality of the product and the price, it still is. Yeah, if people open their eyes to this, it can really sell like hot bread in the morning.
Yeah, so at the time of recording this, I've yet to try them, but I'm hoping to have them again as soon as today, right after we're done recording this, which is just amazing timing. That's how it always works out, right? But I think, again, we've both tried everything.
Yes.
And I think we because we've had the opportunity to try everything, we can have these strong opinions on what we think is the best of the best.
Right.
But I think for the average consumer, the appeal of this new Ultra is one, I think it's significantly cooler looking than what they did with the 1.1 and 1.2. I think they nailed the design. Although there's still going to be people that hate the look of Puma boots, which I mean, I get it, whatever.
If Nike made this, people will love it.
Yeah, I think it looks really good. And as a launch colorway, I think they did a good job. I think trending away from more of that knitted style upper with the original Matrix Evo to this newer raw or thin synthetic, which is kind of the direction that Nike and Adidas have gone into, I think that's probably a good move as well, because it's going to be viewed more so as an alternative rather than something completely different, which is good. And then you also mentioned price, which I brought it up in the US. I know Europe is a little bit different, but when you're talking about Speedflow.1 or Vapor 14 Elite, which would be your least expensive of the top end options, those are $250 versus the $200 you're going to have to pay for these new Ultras, which is $50. That's a lot of money. Like that's significant. And I don't think you're getting $50 less football boot. That's for sure.
Absolutely not.
Right? So
when we're talking value for money, and we've said this many times, the Mizuno Elite boots are up there in terms of having the best value for money, but it doesn't get better than this, in my opinion. Like they could easily charge $250 for this and justify it with the quality of the boot, the performance, and the materials, but they don't, because they're clever. They realize that, okay, we gotta do something to really hit the market from a different angle, and they've done it. And I think, I hope this becomes a success, because it is genuinely a good football boot.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. I don't know that they will, but I really feel like they need to use Neymar. Like if they not using Neymar would be such a missed opportunity for where Puma's at as a brand right now and where their products are at. I just think that they are completely missing the boat in not trying to compete right now with the popularity of that man and the price point where their products are at right now. That to me is how they make a dent in the market. That's how they gain some market share. Because yes, there's going to be people that go on the internet and watch guys like us say how good the products are, but that is ultimately 1-2% of the market, if that.
Sure.
You need people going online or walking into stores and saying, I want this Puma boot because it's a Puma boot, not I'm going to pick a Puma boot because they don't have my size in Mercurials. That's where they need to take advantage of this.
I know what you're getting at. And that's the thing. I've been thinking about this myself, is like, how much do Puma, which boot is more able to do well with or without Neymar? And I think this is going to do fare better than the Future Z without Neymar, than the Future Z would do with you get the point. Great English here today, Jay. That is amazing. But I think it would be a smart move also for Neymar, given his history of wearing other boots than their speed boots. The whole Hypervenom, wearing Vapors. Guy's a speed boot guy, right? That's the way he's always been that. Give it to him again. Sell some Ultras. Then, put Griezmann in there. Now, he also loves the Ultra. But you know what I mean? Then sign Kevin De Bruyne and put him in the Future. He's throwing money around like there's no tomorrow, right? I agree. Throw Neymar into the Ultras and watch them sell like hot cake. Hot bread? Yeah. Hot cake? It doesn't matter. It's hot and it's in the morning. People want it.
It's hot and it's in the morning. People love cake.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not sure what the legal ramifications could be for Puma as a brand, but I really feel like if you did a colorway that has some kind of a reference to the Mercurial, I just feel like they could do so well.
I know they have a lot of money, but they don't have that much money.
I think it's such a, I think if you really want to drive a lot of attention, man, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. And also lose your entire year's revenue because Nike would sue them back to the Stone Age.
I also find it funny that
usually.
Go ahead.
I think, usually we say to the brands that they should listen to us and then take our ideas and we'll take 10%. This is one of those moments where I would strongly advise you, Puma, to not take that idea. And we certainly don't want a 10% share of whatever comes out of it, because then I will be a poor man for 10 lifetimes. That will.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe scratch that idea, but
okay.
Whatever.
Yeah. So Josh, lots of boots to talk about. We've talked so much that a couple of questions. There's this guy called Andrew Texera who asks Jose and JayMike, do you know where I can find which last each Nike model English? Time to end the episode, Jay, when you start falling over stupid. Anyways, which last is each Nike model built on? I have a few pre-production samples in my collection which seem to have considerably different shapes to the production version. Some of them come with tags showing which last they were built on, but I have no way to tell which ones the final version is built on. And you can do it very simply. You can you can take out the insole and you can take a look at the number under the insole where it says, I think this says GF13. Which is so this is the GF13-2. The GF13 was introduced all the way back when they made the Hypervenom. That was the X1 last back in the day. They adopted that, called it the GF13. Global Fit 13 introduced it on the Magista. And that has been more or less the last that they've used ever since. Now they've adapted it, calling it the GF13-2. But yeah, that's the way you can tell.
Also...
Yeah, go ahead.
Even if you do that research, no, it's not really research, it's pulling an insole out and reading the code. You can't really trust that as every boot that has a GF13 last is going to fit the same way.
No.
Ultimately, the upper still has a humongous factor in how the boot's going to fit and feel.
Yeah. We got a comment here from FAR, future great. So obviously, fantastic football player. On our Messi versus Ronaldo video, one of the first podcasts we did, he said, very stupid discussion. CR7 lost to Mess. Obviously knows his football. In the finals in 2009, Messi scored that day, full stop, lol, full stop, space. You two do not have any idea about football. And FAR, future great, you're absolutely right. We suck. So thanks for that input, and jokes on you for watching a full podcast with two obvious football imbeciles discussing who the greatest player of all time is. Thank you for that. G6, what's the difference between the PUMA Ultra 1.1 and the 1.2? Does anyone know? And you have come, my friend, to the right place, because the only difference... Josh, you want to take it, should I?
It is the one. The difference is one.
Yeah,
okay. 0.1 technically.
That was not what I was going to say. It's the weave. So they've woven the pattern, that motion pattern that you see in the 1.1. It goes all the way back to the heel on the 1.2. So there's just a bit more texture in the graphic. Is what it is. Otherwise, they're the same. Now you also know Josh. Benel Machunu. What an awesome name. Jay and Josh, what's the greatest speed boot of all time and with the best objective performance?
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, look, I can't go in this moment. I cannot answer that question. I just can't. I'm too conflicted on. I'm too much in the hype right now. I have to digest for a month to really have that answer.
Sure.
I don't know that I have an answer to that question. I think Vapor 1 in terms of impact is huge. Sure. I think 2010 F50 Addy Zero is huge. I think Superfly 1 is huge. Superfly 4 is gigantic.
Superfly 1. Get out.
I think it meant a lot. I think it meant a lot. No, objective performance.
Okay. He asked, which is the greatest speed boot of all time and with the best objective performance? I would say, just off the top of my head, and you can laugh at me, I'm going to go ahead and say 2014 F50 Addy Zero was very good. Okay. Also, that tooling was amazing. Vapor 11, very good. I also want to give a shout out to, I'm going to say those two, and then it's going to be either these or the 14s. But I think it might be again, recency bias and all that stuff. I'm feeling the hype, all that jazz, blah, blah, blah. I have worn the El Retornos for quite a while and have enjoyed it. I have worn these for quite a while in blackouts and have really enjoyed them. But, still recency bias is here. So I would say one of those four, I think, have the best objective, we can always say, but I feel those are the boots that perform the best as like raw speed boots.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I might pick a Vapor 13 over a Vapor 14. I think that boot just did. I think it was very, very well rounded as a product.
Sure.
And then
I can live with that.
Objective performance is so difficult because I think you're not factoring in feel, and I think that's a big part of a speed boot. And then the things that you can't measure, which is feel. I think Flyknit Ultra is just, man, I know it gets forgotten a lot, but that was an excellent product.
It was. I just never. I feel I never got the full Flyknit Ultra experience. I just, for speed boot, I would rather have the 11s because they were thinner and more pliable to the upper. But I very similar. And I think with saying Vapor 13, I think you're right in saying that it is the best speed boot ever plus. Meaning that it also did a little bit more. It appealed to slightly more people. So it was still a great speed boot to those like hardcore speed boot fan nerds, whatever you want to call it, enthusiasts who enjoy speed boots. But they also, it reached a much wider audience, and that's what it did so well.
Yeah, I think, again, time is always a good way to decide what your true opinion is, because when everything's new, it all seems fantastic. But I think now comparing Vapor 13 and Vapor 14, and again, everyone's got a little bit of a different preference. I would argue that there's slightly more structure to the Flyknit upper on the Vapor 13 versus Vaporposit. And I also think it's slightly more comfortable, at least on my feet.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you. I think with respect for time, so we don't go over the full hour because, man, we have talked a lot today. We're going to shut it down right there. It's been a great discussion. So, final question on the spot. Which of the boots that we've talked about today do you pick?
Well, I've only tried the Speedflows out of everything that we talked about today, but I don't expect anything to wow me to the same extent as the Speedflow Plus has, because I feel like there's very few boots in the 10, 11 years that I've been doing this that have had that impact on me.
I agree.
It's impressive.
Yeah. I feel sorry for the Ultras because they're genuinely good. And I would point to them if it wasn't for the Speedflows, but sorry guys. It's impressive. But hey, what do you guys think? Which of the new models are you most excited about? The super value for money Ultras, are you kidding me, fit in the Speedflows, or the revamped lighter Tiempo Legend 9? Let us know in the comment section right down below. Also,
or the Phantom GT2.
I forgot about that. Well, no one's going to say that anyway, so might as well not mention it. But let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to go subscribe to the channel with the notifications on. You can check out all the stuff we're doing on our separate channels right over by next to our faces and all that jazz. Leave us a like on the video if you had a good time. And with those words, I have been JayMike, and I approve this message. Thanks for now.
Thanks for watching.
Man, fantastic.